Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. And we are finally here. We are coming down to it. We are almost there to the end of our 25 for 25, counting down the top 25 Knicks of the last 25 seasons. We kick off the top 5 today with an episode about a Knick that I'm not sure is a beloved Knick, but he's certainly an important Knick in the last 25 years. We will get to Tyson Chandler in a bit. First and foremost, I'd like to say hello to my dear friend, Andrew Claudio. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, John.
And I would like to remind everybody listening to come and follow us on social media at Knicks Film School. That is SKOOL, wherever you get your social media from. Also, of course, subscribe to the show, both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating, write a kind review. And if you are so inclined, look into our Patreon, where the bonus content is always flowing.
I will also add, we have a Substack that you can check out, knicksfilmschool.substack.com. Some of the comments recently have been, why don't you guys plug the Substack? Haven't had a chance to update the graphic, but yes, we have a Substack that John writes 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 days a week sometimes. By all means, please check out our Knicks Film School Substack.
It's because I'm such a selfless person, and to plug the Substack would be in my self-interest, and I hate taking time for myself. It's just, I'm an altruistic guy. What can I say?
But if it's on the graphic, then you can't say it's your humility that's taking a hit or anything like that. It's just part of the show. You're just reading what's on the screen.
That's all I'm doing. So you got to put it on the graphic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good to be back after a highly contentious episode, John. Set the comments reflect that for sure. Set the comment section ablaze, John Macri.
So this would be the YouTube comment section.
Yes, the YouTube comment section. I believe they ranged anywhere from I don't think Macri likes the Knicks to GMAC is the voice of reason to Macri's had too much cornbread. All of the above. They range in opinions. And look, it showcased one of the things that I've always respected about you, and it's your ability to have an opinion. Yes, we are blessed in this country to still be able to have opinions. I think you're blessed in this country to still be able to have opinions, but a pretty scary 10 days here in America, but I digress. But that even if nobody else thinks it's true, even if I disagree with you, if the comment section, our audience disagrees with you, if the Knicks who traded for Cat and traded Jalen Brunson's groomsmen to get Cat, even if the league and its voting body disagrees with you because they gave him all NBA and an all-star team, you stand firm. And sometimes you even laugh in the face of people who disagree with you. It is your right to have that opinion, and I respect it. I will just say, John.
Yes.
In review, we didn't really actually get an explanation or a reason why you have him 13th.
Sure. It's because I think 12 people are more deserving to be higher.
So specifically,
you want me to go one by one?
Well, so let me get to it, because there's J.R. Smith and R.J. Barrett and David Lee and Kurt Thomas and the post-2000 version of Allen Houston. And it's I understand if it's I like the explanation you gave of service time and the low post that he doesn't play in as much to your liking, and the dirty work and the precious muck that you think he should partake in.
I love the muck.
As I said in the last episode, I share some of those concerns. I just don't think that equals 13th, especially since, and here's my big question, John. Why, if all of that you don't think he partakes in leads to the impact you don't think he gives, why isn't OG Anunoby ranked higher than him?
Because Cat, I do. So look, this is obviously an imperfect science, and which is to say, it is not a science at all. This is largely a matter of opinion, and it is kind of based on your own feeling about a player's impact, and that's really, I think, for me, what it came down to, and who had the most positive impact in the time that they were on the team. And obviously if they're here for longer, then I'm going to grade that more. Karl-Anthony Towns, and by the way, and I didn't expressly say it on the Cat episode, but I've said it on a few other episodes, and I think I went a little bit into detail on it on one recent episode. I definitely held all of the players on the current team to a higher standard. It's why I was lower on Josh Hart than anybody else. I was lower on Cat than anybody else. I was lower on OG than almost anyone else. I was lower on Deuce than I think almost anybody else. The only guy on the current, Mikal Bridges. Oh my God. I meant to do it, and I may do it this morning to quote tweet the episode release, the Mikal episode with you and Mensa, with a snapshot of the text conversation between me, you, DJ, and Benji, with blacking out the names to protect the innocent.
But now the innocent have been exposed.
I didn't say explicitly. Look, but everybody would see because it's my text.
Pablo Torre over here.
They'll see what I said about Mikal Bridges. So
right,
again,
but I'm saying like you've now exposed who's in the conversation. Like, well, John Macri finds out.
John Macri, that's it. I was lower on Mikal than a lot of our. The only guy I wasn't lower on was Jalen Brunson, and again, shout out to the Knicks Film School newsletter. I wrote, because I'm a little ahead of where we are here on the pod, I had my Jalen Brunson newsletter release today on Friday. And I wrote in that newsletter, as I did in the Carmelo Anthony letter, that I think the distance between number 1 and number 2 is a lot closer than a lot of people maybe want to accept. And I was reading the comments to the newsletter this morning, and boy, oh boy, did people disagree with that. So I think it's safe to say that I was lower on everybody, Brunson all the way on down, on the current team, and I held them to a higher standard. So that's part of it.
But then why OG over, like why Cat over OG? Because I know how you feel about his impact.
Because Karl-Anthony Towns was the second offensive option on a team that won 51 games and made it to the third round of the playoffs. And even though I may have misgivings about Karl-Anthony Towns and what he does and what he doesn't do, his job is still so much harder and requires so much more of him than OG Anunoby, who a lot of possessions gets to go and hang out in the corner and wait to kick. Now, again, is there a whole other conversation about whether OG Anunoby should be over there in the corner waiting for the ball to get kicked out to him? Yeah, but I didn't really consider that sort of thing in my rankings. I just consider what have you brought to the table? How much have you contributed to winning? And in some cases, how much have you contributed to losing? So much more is asked of Karl-Anthony Towns. And when you compare the games played, yeah, OG Anunoby got traded here almost a full half season or more than a full half season before, but the games played are not all that different between Cat and OG. And so given their roles, there was never a doubt in my mind that Cat was going to be higher than OG. But if you look at some of the other players that I had above Cat on the list, and I'm trying to, I can't find my individual ranking, but so like I had Cat 13th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
J.R. Smith.
No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it.
RJ Barrett.
I have RJ Barrett 12th. To me, what RJ Barrett brought over the course of 5 seasons, right?
4 and change.
4.5 seasons.
Yeah, 4 and a couple months, yeah.
Where for much of that time, he was the second offensive option on a team that was at least a good team. And in some cases, a better than a good team, bordering on a very good team. I think, and again, did I have my misgivings with RJ just like I had my misgivings with Cat? But if I am grading, if I am putting the two side by side and I say Cat, all NBA level second option on a team that won 51 games and made it to the third round of the playoffs in one season and an up and down postseason versus RJ Barrett, a sometimes number 2, sometimes number 3 option on a team that was not on average nearly as good as the team we saw last season, but was good and made the playoffs a few times. And RJ was arguably more consistent than Cat in his playoff, at least his most recent playoff run. albeit with less to do than Cat was given to do in his play. Again, these are splitting hairs, truly splitting hairs. But when, in my estimation, I brought RJ out just a little bit ahead. Just above RJ, I had Mitchell Robinson. Again, Mitchell Robinson. How long has he been here? How much has he contributed to winning?
I have no issue with Mitch.
So what is it really? Just JR is the bigger problem you have?
J.R. Smith, Kurt Thomas, David Lee, like all these guys that never played.
Kurt Thomas, and David Lee. Those were I never for a moment considered putting Karl-Anthony Towns for his one season.
Oh, I know. Believe me, we know. Yeah.
Which contained a lot of moments that made me want to pull my hair out. Putting him above two guys in David Lee and Kurt Thomas, who every time I watch those two dudes play, or were they perfect ball players? No, they weren't perfect ball players. God knows David Lee, again, had his issues. But I never worried about either of them. Not once. Every time those two guys stepped foot on the court, I know they were given not only everything they had, but they were doing everything that they could humanly possibly do to help their team win basketball games. As opposed to the guy that we just did the episode about, who I have a lot of questions about whether he's doing everything he could possibly do to help his team win basketball games. And then when you do the one season versus how many seasons was it for David Lee? Five,
I think 5 seasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for Kurt
Thomas,
5 also.
It's 6 seasons. Because you have that other season where he played the Bone Spur game, the 2013 season. Yeah.
Again, call me a nerd, call me whatever other derogatory names you want to call me. Go look at the win shares for the relevant time period we're talking about. Kurt Thomas and David Lee blow Karl-Anthony Towns out of the water. Now,
the stat that skews center, by the way, the stat that skews.
What are we talking about? We're talking about three big men. We're talking about.
Right, but Cat's only played one season.
Yes.
So you'd rather have Kurt Thomas or David Lee than Karl-Anthony Towns?
If we were grading on a curve where like one season means a ton, and then the second season means incrementally less, and the third season means incrementally less. And I didn't do it that way. I'm like, you play one season, you get credit for one season. You play 2 seasons, you get credit for 2 seasons. Now, within that, do seasons in which the team accomplished a lot matter more than seasons in which the team did not accomplish a lot? Hello, David Lee. Hello, Kurt Thomas, for a lot of the time he was here. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
And if it was
his 2 best seasons with the Knicks said they don't matter. We're waiting for LeBron to come.
Wait, who are you talking about?
David Lee. His 2 best seasons with the Knicks said they don't matter.
Okay. And if I was only considering 2.5, 3 seasons of David Lee or Kurt Thomas for that matter versus Cat's 1 season, you know what? Maybe those rankings would have been flipped. David Lee played 5 seasons here. Kurt Thomas played 5 seasons here. Again, during the relevant time period. So it was not a hard choice. J.R. Smith, if you want to knock me for one of my ranks, knock me for JR. Again, I don't know how. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I named a table at my freaking wedding after J.R. Smith. The man reached me on a ethereal level.
Yeah, you asked if you wanted to get the pipe, and you apparently did. Yeah.
To say, and this is a good lead into today's topic, to say nothing about the fact that he was maybe arguably is, I don't know if he was arguably. I think one could craft an argument that he was the second most important player on the 2012-2013 Knicks. With who we're going to talk about today. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
But so if I had the guy that we're going to talk about today, who I think is actually the second most important player on the 2012-13 Knicks, ranked number 4, which I did, because you had the 12-13 season, plus you had another season that this guy, Tyson Chandler, was excellent, won Defensive Player of the Year, plus a third season that we kind of like to forget, but also, his injury played a big reason in why that 13-14 season was bad. If I had him at 4, how much lower was I really going to have J.R. Smith, who again had an exceptional season with the team, not on par with Cat's the season we just had, but not maybe that far.
No, not on par. You were right the first time. Not on
par. But then you also got all this additional service time from J.R. Smith, which I think was valuable. He played a role on the 11-12 team that finished so successfully, and that I think you could argue started to hit a stride after he joined the team. And, he was part of that, albeit short playoff run, but he was part of a playoff run there. And then he had the 6-man season, and then he had, whatever you want to make of the season after that. And he stayed around for part of the following season. He was here for parts of 4 seasons.
And in that 4th season, they started 5-30. I
know, and they were
5-35. That is suddenly an additional case to his art. Look, can I just
service time matters to me. Andrew.
Service time matters to you. I get it. I still think, based off of everything you've said, Anunoby should then be ahead of Cat, because even in his limited service time, you can count on him. You know what you're getting with OG Anunoby and all the assumptions you make about what Karl-Anthony Towns brings to the table. I'm just gonna say, speaking about Cat, like, he had this detrimental postseason when he averaged 21-12 and was their highest. Still their highest net positive of all the minutes that he played of anybody during their deepest playoff run throughout this entire criteria that we're talking about. Like 21-12 over the course of this 18-game playoff run, and was the highest net positive over the entire run. And look, with the way we started this with opinions, John, and I'm all for you having this opinion and staking this claim and your misgivings with Cat. I think there are people that share it.
Oh, and I know there are people that share it.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I know. I share some of it. I share it on a much more level-headed playing field. That, I'm worried that his defense is going to eventually cost them in a late playoff series. It did already. I would argue that it's so funny. So you've now staked. I respect the place that you've staked this claim, that if they don't get as far as they did last year, and this is where someone wanted to make the opinion that the real reason you have him ranked 13th is because he got Tibbs fired, and this is the grudge you're holding against him. They could. I'm not saying that, because this is where you wanted to put him 13th on the list. Wait,
what is that? It has nothing.
You blame him for getting Tibbs fired. It's totally, John, we love you. It's okay. It's totally fine if you're still going through it, John. It's totally fine. But you've now staked the claim that if people are going to take the victory lap, if the Knicks do get to the finals, even win the finals, they'll say, hey, we got rid of Tibbs. Look what happened. And I think that's not fair. Personally, I'll just get ahead of that a year from now. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that involves the nuance of why they lost the Indiana series, which included some divine intervention in game 1 of that series. But I know it will drive you nuts. So you've now planted a flag on the island a year ahead of time, that if they fall short of said conference finals, you could say, hey, what I've been saying all year about Cat, it wasn't a Tibbs thing. It was a Cat thing.
I don't.
So, here for differences of opinion. Shout out to America.
3 things. Number 1, I never said Karl-Anthony Towns was universally detrimental to the playoff run. He had detrimental moments and detrimental stints. And again, I'll go back to what I said. To whom much is given, much is expected. Part of my ranking absolutely has to do with how much I think he fully actualizes and utilizes the God-given gifts that he has. That's number 1. Number 2, J.R. Smith played 213 games in a Knick uniform. Karl-Anthony Towns has played 72. So that means J.R. Smith has played almost 3 times as many regular season games. I did not think for a second that what Karl-Anthony Towns did in those 72 regular season games was enough to outweigh what J.R. Smith did in 3 times as many regular season games. That's number 2. And then the last thing, if the Knicks win a championship this year, there will be nobody on planet Earth who will be happier than me. And you know why that is?
Why?
Because that would mean it is a great thing for Knicks Film School, and I got a fucking mortgage to pay. Thank you, Andrew Claudio.
I am of the same belief and opinion that it will benefit both of us in that way. I just also, it's quite brilliant. The stake that you've claimed that should things go the other way, well, you now have that island all to yourself.
No, look, if the Knicks win a championship, look, okay.
And if they don't,
they needed to move on from Tibbs unless they wanted to completely like revamp the roster because the juju was bad. Very clearly, they needed to change something. I continue to have suspicions about the starting five and whether that was all related to the coach, and what we saw over the X number of months that ended last year was all coach related. But here's the other part of it. I don't put all that on Towns. In fact, I don't even put most of that on Towns. I don't
really put anything on, and I think that's really more where I go to and who I speak for is that I know you say you don't blame him for playoff misgivings. I think you literally just said that he's already cost them a playoff series. And I think so much went into the Indiana series that it's not just the Cat fault. It's not just Cat's fault.
It's
why
not.
They lost, including like game one is a 1 in what's the Doctor Strange thing? 1 in how many thousand outcomes, and the Pacers got the one. You know,
Jalen Brunson was more to blame for the game one loss than Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns didn't throw that pass to OG Anunoby under the basket. Jalen Brunson did. Karl-Anthony Towns had one glaring defensive miscue. I would argue that was not nearly as detrimental as Jalen Brunson's offensive miscue. And the game 3 that they won, they only won that because of Karl-Anthony Towns. And if they won game 1, for as much as Jalen Brunson had a better scoring game, Karl-Anthony Towns was the better offensive player in game 1. I'm not talking about that series specifically, although there were times where Karl-Anthony Towns was rough in that series as well, and I do think that contributed to some of the losses. I just didn't think he was as good as he could have been in the playoffs. I don't know how else to say it.
And that is your opinion. And I want to stand on business here in this world where having an opinion is getting more and more dangerous here in 2025. I love that you have this opinion, and I look forward to seeing how it plays out throughout the year while having the inverse opinion.
Quick break to tell you about America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. You know the words. Shout out to Cornbread. Yes, Cornbread, the source of your healthy happy hour. It's a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. Well, how do they achieve that balance? My favorite thing about Cornbread is it's just the right amount for me as someone who is not a regular user of these sorts of products, but still wants to get that relaxation without feeling anxious or paranoid like some other cannabis edibles, which is why Cornbread's 1-to-1 THC to CBD ratio is perfect for me. They have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, which is just the right dose, and it gives me everything I need without any of the stuff that I don't want. If you are looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They have created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that is 100% legal. As a special offer to Knicks Film School listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use promo code KFS at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use code KFS for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour.
Now, speaking of Knicks centers, John, if you want to now actually talk about the topic of today's show, I'm here for it. I knew there was more meat on the bone because we're not up against you having to go meet with another person that's going to help fix your house.
We're going to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns for the next 82 games. We're going to screw that. We're going to start talking about him in preseason. None of it's going to matter.
It's the 16 after, yes, or the whatever the
however God willing,
however far they go in the playoffs. Yeah,
no, he could be an All NBA first team player this season. I'm not going to say that's not going to matter, but the Karl-Anthony Towns conversation, who wins, who loses, where we come out on it, that's how many months away? We're a while away from that getting decided. Maybe that's a good transition to talking about a player who had an unquestionably positive regular season impact during his time here in New York, and quietly, much more quietly than Karl-Anthony Towns, it turns out, because I don't think a ton of people still hold this against him, had a playoff that was maybe a little bit more uneven. And I know Andrew is the person to talk to about that. So Tyson Chandler attended Dominguez High School. He was drafted number 3 overall, 1 spot ahead of Eddie Curry and 2 spots after Kwame Brown in the famous draft in which none of the first 4 picks were American college players. Trying to remember who the number 5 pick was in that draft. It was the first collegiate player taken, if you want to look that up. He was actually drafted by the Clippers, and then he was traded to the Bulls in a trade that netted the Clippers Elton Brand, who for any of our younger listeners may not know who Elton Brand is. Elton Brand was actually the number 1 pick in the draft a couple years earlier and was a really good NBA player. So the fact that the Bulls traded him for Tyson Chandler showed how highly they thought of this kid from, again, Dominguez High School.
Yeah, that was a bad trade. The 4th pick in that draft went to Michigan State, and his name was Jason Richardson of dunk contests. The 5th pick was
no, Jason Richardson was the 5th pick. Eddie Curry was the 4th pick.
Yes, that's what I meant. Jason Richardson was the 5th pick, and then Shane Battier
from Duke
University went 6th.
Chandler was signed and traded to the Knicks after the lockout in 2011. It was a 3-team trade. Who the hell was the 3rd team? I forget who the 3rd team was.
Dallas, Washington.
Oh, it was Dallas and Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot it was Washington.
I got to be honest, looking through the details, I wrote 3-team trade on the graphic. There is not a notable piece of compensation that went back to any of the other teams. There's 2nd round picks being thrown around. Shout Ronnie Turioff, once a Knick, always a Knick. Yes. There are a lot of players that I had to look up to make sure that the internet wasn't punking me with, is this a real person?
They are. I assure you. He won the 2011-12 NBA Defensive Player of the Year award. Fairly certain he's still the only Knick to ever win that award, right? Yeah.
Yep.
He was selected All-NBA 3rd team and All-Defensive 2nd team in the 2011-12 season. So again, all of his hardware, or most of his hardware, I should say, came the season before the season, which is an interesting little wrinkle in considering his legacy. And then he was selected to the Eastern Conference All-Star team and made 1st team All-Defense in the 2012-13 season, which was the season that really puts Tyson Chandler on this list. So if you're looking on the YouTube channel right now, you could see where our voters had him, and it's pretty much uniform. Well, no, not uniformly. There's a lot of 4s here. There's a decent amount of 5s. And then there's some, I think Sean, it looks like, has him 8. Kev has him 8. Kev has him 9. Chris has him 9.
That's the lowest. Those are the lowest, yeah. Chris, I didn't have time to coordinate him coming on. I also will just say, speak for him. He made the case Mitch should be ahead of him, and love you, Chris. I want to talk about service time. Playing games and winning hardware and making all NBA teams does kind of matter. I do understand if we're just doing a playoff impact rankings, then that's Mitch's case, which is what we made a couple episodes ago. But that Tyson Chandler, it's majority 4 or 5. I had him ranked 5th. You had him ranked 4th on this list.
Yeah, and I know. Again, when I first thought of this idea, and now it's officially no more. Spoilers are done. Everybody knows who's going to be in the top 3. Those were, and you could, I'm not revealing anything by saying this because everybody can just go on the YouTube channel and look at all of the votes. Every single person on the KFS faculty had the same 3 people as their top 3. We'll get to the order when we get to it.
I was gonna say there's one wrinkle there's one wrinkle next week.
Yes, we'll talk about it next week. But my mind immediately was all right, who's the 4th best Knick of the last 25 years? And I know for me, Tyson Chandler was the first name that came to my mind when I thought of who the correct answer was. And I think, again, for me, it was because I thought of, all right, who are the most successful teams of this last 25 years? And it's the team that we're currently watching. And it's the team that was the team that Tyson Chandler was on. And then it's like, all right, after you get past the big three, after you get through Brunson, Randall, and Melo, who was the next most important player on either of those iterations of the team? And then, and this is not to get back to Cat, but then factoring in how long a time were they important for? And I think, just speaking for me, and again, this is not like I've all NBA. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know this. I don't know that there's a single honor that goes further with me when I am judging NBA history than All NBA. All stars are nice. All NBA goes a long way, and all defense is I value a lot of that too, and only because of this. OG Anunoby last season put forth the best defensive season by a Knick that we have seen in the last 10, 12 years, whatever it is. He could not crack the top 10. And so when you combine the Tyson Chandler third team All NBA, albeit at center, with the defensive player of the year and the all defense, the two all defenses, I think that collection of hardware over a 2-year period plus the team success is why, for me, Tyson Chandler was my number 4.
Do you know what the Knicks finished in defense in 11-12? The year he won Defensive Player of the Year?
I don't think they were a great defense.
They finished 5th.
Okay, they were very good.
They were very good. And I had always thought about the 12-13 season because I knew they were a top, I think they were 6th or 7th in offense and 19th in defense. And that was like the frustration with that team, is that they had 2 stretches they were really good. They won 14 in a row late in the season. I think they started 20-8 at the beginning of the season, and they were 500 for the entire middle of the season. And I just looked it up. In 11-12, this is the Linsanity season. This is the year D'Antoni got fired. Finished 5th in defensive rating, where you add in that this is a lockout shortened season, so they only played 66 games. I remember the conversation around his DPOY, his Defensive Player of the Year award, being this is very New York generated. He's only getting this because he's a Knick, and being on the defense that, like, there's nobody on this team that's able to have any type of defensive impact other than Tyson Chandler, and he's doing it on the 5th ranked defense in the NBA. Like, what are we doing here?
Can we also say one more thing about just while we're on stats very quickly? You look at his counting stats, and they're not crazy. He averaged 11 points, then 10.5 points, then just under 9 points. His rebounding average in New York, I think, was like 10 on the dot, 10.1. He was the most efficient player in the league his first season with the Knicks. He made 68% of his field goals. And again, like, obviously you consider the sorts of shots he was taking, but to have the luxury, and I remember what it felt like, especially considering some of the centers that had been on the Knicks over the years leading up to when Tyson Chandler came, like putting aside Amari Stoudemire, who was, really was used more as a 4. To have this guy, was like, oh my God, anytime the ball is around the basket, a lot like a guy who didn't make our list, Marcus Camby, for a brief period of his time with the Knicks. Anytime the ball was anywhere around the basket, whether it was like a ball that was a loose ball off of a missed shot, or somebody threw up a lob to him, it was just, you counted it as a bucket. And then when you add in the fact that he was a pretty good free throw shooter for his position, 69% his first 2 years back to back as a Knick, like, for what he was, a really good offensive player in that role.
Again, I had him 5th, not trying to diminish what all of what you just said means. So he took 380 field goal attempts in the 11-12 season, where he shot, was it 70%? 70 what percent? What was the number you came up with?
16. I think it was 69%.
That's his free throw percentage. His field goal percentage for the season was what?
68. Sorry.
68% from the field. Okay. Of those 380 field goal attempts, how many do you think were at the rim?
Out of 380? Oh, God. 350? I don't know.
312. Close. They didn't call it offensive play for him.
Yeah, sure.
Knicks fans looking on the screen. This was his shot chart in 11-12, according to Basketball Reference. And this was always the security blanket that I appreciated from Tyson Chandler, is that I didn't have to worry about putbacks. I didn't have to worry about the rim really on both sides of the floor. This was the best case I had for why Linsanity was sustainable. It's that the pick and roll game he had with Jeremy Lin was leading to Tyson Chandler having these huge point and rebound games because of like the gravity that, yes, Jeremy Lin was bringing to the table. He does those, like he's sixth in rebounds. I didn't put it on the graphic. Total rebounds over the course of the past 25 seasons. And that says nothing of all the tip out rebounds he caused as a result. There was a craft to him being able to garnish extra possessions for the Knicks just because he was the tallest and one of the most athletic on the court. So,
I lied. Yeah. I have one more stat for you.
Please, yes.
Per basketballreference.com, if you look at the greatest, so offensive rating is obviously a team stat. But as we know from on-off data and all that, you can look at an offensive rating for a team when a certain player is on the court. Looking at that, the individual player's offensive rating, the highest single season number for any Knick in history. It's not Tyson Chandler. You want to guess who it is? It's another center.
It's Karl-Anthony Towns?
No, it's not.
Who?
Isaiah Hartenstein, the guy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Karl-Anthony Towns replaced during the 23-24 season. Which, again, if anybody is bored on a Saturday afternoon, go look up the numbers when Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, and Brunson played without Hartenstein, and then go look at the numbers when those three guys played with Hartenstein. Your eyes are going to pop out of your head. He's number one, Hartenstein, 136.2. The second best offensive rating season by an individual player in Knicks history, Tyson Chandler in 2012-13, 133.0. The third best offensive rating season by an individual player in Knicks history, Tyson Chandler, 2011-12, 129.6. And then from there, it's David Lee, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Quentin Grimes, Jalen Brunson, David Lee. So, some of the names you'd expect, or at least that I would expect, because I had David Lee ranked 5th on my board.
Shout out to Mike D'Antoni and those Coors Field inflated stats. I mean, you also didn't say anything about the defensive rating over those stretches.
I don't believe that data is available.
Gotcha.
Anyway, okay. So yeah, to your point, the tip outs, all the different things that Tyson Chandler did, the screens that he set, and how important that was in this particular offense. Just, it really was a hand in glove fit for a team that had 3 dynamic perimeter players, and then 1 Carmelo Anthony at the 4. And I don't know if we need to, we haven't even got to the categories yet, so I know we're running long, but do we need to get into the Amari piece of this, who, by the way, has not come up on the list yet?
Yeah. Again, people will see where I have Amari and understand why I have some thoughts about Amari's placement on this list in a similar vein. Well, okay, not a similar vein to where you have Cat, but just did we watch the same thing during his time in New York? And
not a completely dissimilar vein to why I have Cat.
I didn't have Amari ranked 13th is where I'm going with this. I had him outside of the top 5. And again, it's silly to even say spoiler alert at this point. He's ahead of Tyson Chandler on this list. And what I remember, and this is part of the Tyson Chandler conversation, what I remember about the 2012 lockout, the 11-12 lockout, first and foremost, it's that, and this is where, being one of the old school listeners of the Bill Simmons podcast, you can listen to the Sil Bimmons YouTube channel, which has all of the BS report episodes available to you if you want to go listen to him. And he's saying what the league circles and the players union is telling all of their reps is that Stern is willing to lock us out the entire season, be on your next contract before this upcoming year. And it's why Melo showed up to the 11-12 season out of shape. It's why a lot of players went into that season not looking their very best. It's that I didn't know if there was going to be basketball. And then suddenly, a month before Christmas, they come to an agreement. They say opening night is Christmas Day. And there's this amnesty available.
Yeah.
And the Knicks, in order to make room for Tyson Chandler, they amnesty Chauncey Billups, who came over in the Melo trade.
And whose team option they had just picked up.
So you add in that the process seemed pretty awful in how to get Tyson Chandler. But next to Carmelo Anthony, I thought that would have been fine. But they still had Amari Stoudemire, who I think every Knicks fan on all the message boards and pre-prominent Twitter world that we were all discussing basketball on, we're like, oh, we have an amnesty. If Amari's knees ever fail us, we have an out clause. And instead they used it on Chauncey Billups. And while I respect, like, we have to maximize the current team we have, it was just so clear their best team, their best version of this team with Melo is with him at the 4. And they never really had the chance to play that as consistently as they should have.
I think what you're saying being true is not revisionist history. I think the universal agreement, painting it as near universal agreement on that fact,
you're right,
that's going too far, because we are talking about a player who literally just made an All-NBA team. So I think there was at least some modicum of curiosity as to, like, all right, it's not a traditional big three, but it is something of a big three. Let's see how it looks. And then it became clear. Now, who was the starting point guard on opening night?
Oh, you tell me. Was it Mike Bibby?
Oh, I was assuming it was Tony Douglas. Do you want to look it up?
It might have been on opening night.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up right now. But
while you look it, I'll just say it's more than just made an All NBA team for Tyson Chandler.
Stoudemire.
Oh, Stoudemire.
That's what I'm saying. The guy you want, that you're saying everybody was like, oh, well, we could amnesty Stoudemire. He had just made an All NBA team.
I knew that the amnesty was going to come in handy. As far as when they got, it's Tony Douglas on opening night. I thought, and I knew a lot of intelligent people were looking at the amnesty when basketball was suddenly back in our lives. There was we have this security blanket if they decide to move on from Amari, should the worst case scenario happen with his knees. And then they use the amnesty right away, and it's Tyson Chandler. And like you said, it wasn't a great big three, especially when 2 years earlier, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh got together. The thing about Tyson Chandler that excited me, I think a lot of Knicks fans, was the most recent basketball we saw him play was defeating said Miami Big Three in the NBA Finals. See, this was a reigning NBA champion that was coming to the Knicks. And this is really the best. I might want to save this for a lasting legacy, but I'll just say it now. Like the lasting legacy, I don't want to diminish what his first impression was, or at least my excitement when they got him. And we've talked about this throughout the list, that these are clearly guys that would contribute if the team was good. This is like the bailout throw to Kurt Thomas and David Lee and Jamal Crawford and guys that were here when the Knicks were bad. And it's like, man, if this team were good, you'd have a role on this team. I just wish this team just isn't good, so you have to go somewhere else to fully realize yourself. 2012 post lockout, that's when I felt, oh, guys that help teams win championships are now coming to the Knicks. And that's how I felt about getting Tyson Chandler. It was, even if I thought this is a really interesting fit when you see what the Heat are doing and they're playing positionless basketball, and we're very clearly, we have a center, we have a power forward, we have a small forward.
It was a legitimizing moment. Mm-hmm. That is the best compliment that you could pay Tyson Chandler. When the Knicks got him, it was like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, but now this team means business. Now this team could actually fuck around and do something because we got this guy. Just to close the loop on the not universal thought that like, hey, Melo at the 4 might be a good idea. Amari Stoudemire, I don't remember what the injury was, missed games 4 and 5 of the 2011 and 12 season. And do you want to know which player picked up his slack in the starting lineup? If you get this, man, if you get this,
I think he was on the team back
I'll
then.
be impressed.
11, 12. So this is early 2011. Now you got me. I don't know. I won't even guess.
George Harrelson.
Isn't that Josh Harrelson, the guy from Kentucky?
Excuse me, sir.
His real name was Jorts.
His real name was Josh. It's George.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Yeah.
So George, out for those who don't know, George was a big lumbering, doofy, big man. So like, you know, Stoudemire went out. They just went with a much lesser version of Stoudemire. So that had not yet really taken as much of a momentum as it would later on. Anyway, let's get to the categories with Tyson Chandler because
let's do
it. He has earned at least that much. Best memory lasting image as a Knick. I'm going to start this one off because I've done this for a couple. I'll do it for him. It's not one moment. It is very much the image I have of him in my head is the way, like, as he was dunking a basketball, it was like a tremor, like an earthquake tremor would reverberate throughout his entire body, like starting at the rim all the way on down. And there was this violence about it, but it was also beautiful. And then he would land and he would have not quite a scowl on his face, but like I just did that. And like he would kind of make this little pseudo flex. It is one of the more indelible images I have of any Knick of really of my lifetime, not only the last 25 years. And when I think of Tyson Chandler, I will always think of like those moments where he was just, he brought the house down.
It's a good image for sure. If I'm going to just lasting images, the infamous Carmelo Anthony Easter Sunday game against the Bulls, the way the Knicks were able to get that last possession where Melo hits the 3. I believe the second one was over Taj. It was either Taj over Luol Deng. It's because of 2 tip out rebounds from Tyson Chandler. The tip out is the most iconic image that I have of him, that there are all these different rebounds that he did not end up getting credit for, but they end up being team rebounds or rebounds for somebody else because he created them. And it was always the coolest thing to see him do that. Are you aware? You're definitely aware.
Probably not, but
what do people acknowledge as Steph Curry's coming out party?
Oh, the 54 at the Garden?
54 points, 11 of 13 from 3-point range. He played all 48 minutes in this basketball game. Shout out to Mark Jackson. Steph Curry came into Madison Square Garden during the 2012-13 season, and a Warriors team that was starting to find themselves a bit, starting to be a little bit more legitimate. They came in at 33-24, staring at the record right now, and they played the New York Knicks, and Steph Curry went off for 54 points.
And lost.
Because on that same night, Tyson Chandler had a bit of a career night in which he had 16 points, and wait for it, 28 rebounds for the New York Knicks in this game, 10 of them on the offensive end. From what I remember most about this night is that the Knicks are able to create extra possessions, both because of Tyson Chandler's credited offensive rebounds and the tip outs. People look at this as the Steph Curry coming out party. I look at this as the Tyson Chandler 28 rebound game. So that's my lasting image for Tyson Chandler.
Shout out to the Moonlight Pub where me and my now wife watched that game. Very good memory for me. I just thought of the comp for anybody who may not have watched that Knicks team, not in terms of obviously the player type or like what they do on the court, but in terms of the like, I can count on a consistent impact night to night and maybe once a week, once every couple of weeks, whatever, or when he gets rolling, I'm going to have a game that just makes me like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy is on our team. OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby is the comp, I think, for Tyson Chandler in that specific sense. Again, different types of players, but that's what it was like like how we watch OG now, and it's like, oh, it's OG. We're going to get top-notch defense, and we're probably going to get good shooting and some other, some cutting on offense. It was, it was reliable. It was reliable.
And yet,
not reliable enough to ever get the Knicks, that version of the Knicks, to a conference finals. Our biggest regret, something you wish would have gone differently or better, even if it was out of their control. I think he was hurt against the Pacers, and I think this is an easy answer. I wish he was not hurt for that series. Simple.
I don't know how healthy he was to that point. I wish he did not get so thoroughly outplayed by Roy Hibbert.
It was bad.
The thing I'm going to. That was the moment where I went into the series thinking, well, we definitely have the advantage at center. And by game 4, it was so clearly a disadvantage. And again, this wasn't a guy the Knicks were calling plays for. This was your rim protector. This was your best rebounder. He was going to make sure the other team gets one possession. He was going to make sure you get several. And that advantage just went away completely throughout the course of the series. Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, you want to talk about gnarly? His point totals in those 6 games: 4, 8, 9, 12. 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting in game 5, which they won. And then in game 6, 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 22 minutes, which that was his, I'm looking at his game log during the regular season. Tyson Chandler had 3 games where he played that little, and in the Knicks' final game of the season. So to me, it's just he wasn't right. He wasn't right. Physically, he wasn't right. Now, you could turn around and be like, nobody's physically fully healthy at that point in the NBA season. So, suck it up. But I don't know, man. Tyson Chandler was a tough son of a gun. I think he showed that in a championship winning season in Dallas. I just think he was really hurt and maybe didn't let on how much he was hurting. Okay.
How many games during the 12-13 season, regular season, do you think Tyson Chandler, who played 66 games this year, how many of these 66 games do you think he had 5 or fewer rebounds?
5, 4, 6.
6 exactly. 6 on the dot. In this conference semifinal matchup against the Indiana Pacers, he has 3 different games where he had 5 or fewer rebounds.
Yeah. Yep.
Now,
unfortunate. Okay. What role would they have on this current team? Do you want to get me to flood the YouTube comments with even more love notes?
So you'd rather replace Cat with Tyson Chandler than Mitch, or than replace Mitch with Tyson Chandler?
I think if you. So here's the problem. Jalen Brunson, again, very, very high on my list. Spoiler alert, he's going to be pretty high on this list. One thing he is not great at, he's not a great lob thrower. So I think that is something that holds him and Mitch back from being an ideal partnership. And I think it is something that would hold him and Tyson Chandler, even especially peak Tyson Chandler, from being an ideal partnership. But there is a version of a Knicks team where I know that I am getting 48 minutes a night of peak Tyson Chandler. And again, I'm talking about Cat, you keep yelling at me. The guy made All-NBA 3rd team. Guess what? Tyson Chandler.
Tyson Chandler. Okay.
Except replace the defense that we're getting now with the best defender in the league, or at least that's what the voters voted on. I think there's a version where you're getting me 48 minutes of that a night, and it's Jalen Brunson. Now, does that team have enough on offense? That's a question for Mike Brown and Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and the front office, and there are all the interested parties who seem to think that there's a lot more meat on the bone here with these players in particular. It's a road I'd be curious to travel down. I'll just say that.
I'm not going to call this as egregious as ranking Cat 13th, because I do think there is again, this is the defensive player of the year. This is a guy that, made all NBA, made all-star teams for the Knicks, or at least made an all-star team for the Knicks. This isn't putting David Lee or aged Kurt Thomas over Cat. This is a guy that just won a championship when he came to the Knicks. You said it. I don't love the fit with Brunson as far as him as a lob threat. The reason Hartenstein and his screen assists and his the floater game that Hartenstein had, the offensive fit works so much better because you could do so much more with Hartenstein.
Yep.
You're not running your offense at the elbow with Tyson Chandler. He's a complementary piece based off of the pieces around him, which is why his best career stretches are when he played with Chris Paul at a certain point.
Oh,
in New Orleans.
That was his coming. No, so again, I don't want to go on a whole diatribe because we're getting a little long on time. But Tyson Chandler was, I mean, you want to again shake your head. Go look at what the Bulls got back in the trade when they sent out Tyson Chandler, a guy that they invested the freaking third overall pick on, and sent Elton Brand to the Clippers to go look away. And then, so by the time he got to that New Orleans, Oklahoma City team, look it up, kids, and he paired up with Chris Paul, like the bloom was off the rose. And then he paired up with Chris Paul on that team, and that team had some other pieces. David West was the second best player on that team. I believe that wasn't JR's.
The compensation the Bulls got back for Tyson Chandler was PJ Brown, a very infamous name in Knicks history.
Old
PJ Brown in 2006, and one J.R. Smith,
who never played for the Bulls and ended up going, and I think because then he went to China.
I forget if it's that close because this is 06.
I looked this up recently. That's why I
for the J.R. Smith episode, right? So where I was going with this is Tyson Chandler's impact was very predicated on who his point guard is. Like, you played with the point guard in Chris Paul. Then you add like future Hall of Famer Jason Kidd at the end of his career in Dallas, as well as Jason Terry, guys that knew how to throw lobs. And his best stretches as a Knick offensively are the season Jason Kidd was here. And I meant to pull this up earlier when we talked about it, but his chemistry with Jeremy Lin.
We didn't even...
These stat lines during Linsanity at 17-9, 25-11.
Andrew, the preeminent mellow guy here at Knicks Film School. I know you remember during Linsanity this sure looks interesting without a certain somebody. That wasn't all about mellow hatred.
No.
That was about,
look at what this looks like.
Awesome.
And this is the case for Jeremy Lin. Like, this is what D'Antoni does with point guards. Like, he created the Steve Nash, like, I'm going to put all these great pieces around a point guard and make it so, I mean, look, you're going to talk about ways to make the Knicks succeed now. If I'm getting D'Antoni and his offensive game plan and putting Tyson Chandler or Karl-Anthony Towns with Jalen Brunson, you might find some success. I'm just saying your point guard's ability to find his center on lobs is an important aspect to maximizing Tyson Chandler. And I don't think next to Jalen Brunson, the fit is all that great, which is why I would put him instead of Mitch, a guy that actually plays basketball games, in Tyson Chandler over Mitch and his injury history. Also, you want to get rid of all your concerns about Cat and the muck and the stuff that he doesn't do? Well, we've got Tyson Chandler for the muck. Now go be the 4 that Melo never was, Cat.
No, I don't know if okay. Different conversation for a different day.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Linsanity before we get to last thing with Knick fans. You mentioned Jeremy Lin and Linsanity. Never forget the 38 at the Garden doc about Jeremy Lin. Tyson Chandler was featured in there talking about the first time that he saw Jeremy Lin. And I think it was like he went up to a security guard and was like, is that guy supposed to be here? He's just kind of walking the hallways.
Yeah.
I had no idea who he was. Okay. Lasting legacy with Knick fans. Tough winner. A guy that... it's the best compliment I could ever give someone. there were never, it was, give or take the Pacers playoff series. There was never a time where you were like, man, we got to get Chandler off the court. Like you were always happy when he was out there. And when he wasn't on the court, you were like, how soon can we get Tyson Chandler back in there? He was, in Amara, give or take in Amara Stoudemire, he really was a perfect fit for that team, for Melo, for Jeremy Lin. And he's a beloved Knick. And I don't, to go back to where I started the show, I don't think that there's a lot of controversial opinions about Tyson Chandler. I think Knicks fans like pretty universally love this guy.
So, like I said, the first impression of Tyson Chandler, I think, is my lasting legacy, because it was like, oh, the guy that just won the finals is now playing for the Knicks. It used to be the other way around, that used to play for the Knicks, now in the finals. Now was in the finals, now on the Knicks. And I'll just add, like, having this list be so impacted by the last 5 seasons is fascinating, because if we're doing 20 for 20, Tyson Chandler is a top 3 Knick, a top 4 Knick. Well, he's already a top 5 Knick, but like maybe top 2. Pick. So think about that. This is how much we valued just good basketball players that won hardware for the franchise. And thank God for these last 5 seasons, or else this list wouldn't be as populated. But before that, this was one of the few good things we got to root for. It's a small sample of that Indiana series, and I don't want it to erase his contributions during the first couple seasons. So I'm glad that we spent some time celebrating him today.
It shouldn't erase it. I'm happy we celebrated him too. Again, not as controversial of a figure, not as flashy of a player, but really happy he was a Knick. And I think I speak for pretty much all Knick fans when I say that. All right. This was fun, Mr. Claudio.
I'm glad you had fun.
I always have fun with this. Is great. This is this is a good time. I'm sure
there were 4. Yeah.
And then there were 4. The next episode, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to celebrating the player that is coming up at 4. We'll see what you bring to the table. All right. Thanks everybody for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast.
I have a programming note.
Yes.
We are releasing 2 honorable mentions episodes this weekend. Sunday, we're releasing the Alec Burks episode with John and DJ Zulo. John, I don't think you had him in your 25. DJ had him in his 25. And I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about your favorite Hooper's favorite Hooper. Although that was
combo.
That was technically Michael Beasley, but the Alec Burks episode will hit your airwaves on Sunday. An episode a lot of you have been waiting for. I don't even know if I can call it an honorable mention. We're going to talk about Jeremy Lin tomorrow. Me, Sean with the W, and Jeff J. That'll release on Saturday, and I will just say, buckle up. I'm glad we spent some time, John, celebrating what Jeremy Lin was for the Knicks, because that may not come up as much tomorrow.
We talked about it. If you really want to go back and listen to our thoughts about Jeremy Lin, you could go check out the Deuce episode, because that's where I shared my thoughts. I was not having a 25 for 25 list without Jeremy Lin on it. That's
same. I thought it was impossible to ignore Linsanity. I will let the inverse again. We welcome all opinions and the freedom of speech that we protect.
Love it
so solemnly here at Knicks Film School.
Love it.
For now, as long as we're allowed to. Anyway, yes. Thank you to everybody for watching us give our opinions freely. We so value the right to do that.
Jimmy Kimmel, if you're out there, you want to come work for Knicks Film School, there's an open chair here for you, buddy.
New York fan. I have no idea if he's a basketball fan still. I think he's officially become a Lakers fan.
I have no idea.
But I know he's a big Mets fan.
Oh, well, even more.
Born and raised in Brooklyn. Jimmy Kimmel.
3 out of 4 against the Padres. Giddy up. All right. That's it. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.